Welcome back, and thank you for tuning into my Reddit cheating stories. Drop your state in the comments. I'm always curious where you're watching from. Now, let's dive in. Elias watched the scene unfold as if trapped underwater. Every moment stretched and heavy, the sounds around him muted by the weight of his thoughts. Just a few steps ahead, his wife Sarah stood beside her new boyfriend, Mark, who had his arm draped possessively over her shoulders. The image was surreal, almost cinematic, as if someone else's life was playing out before him. On a colorful blanket spread across the park grass, Mark's children, a boy about 12 and a little girl no older than 6, played with cheerful abandon. Meanwhile, Elias and Sarah's son, Ben, sat off to the side, unusually quiet, his small shoulders tense as he watched the adults interact. It had all been so meticulously arranged. The sunny picnic, the smiling introductions, the hopeful attempt to craft a perfect little blended family, all while Elias and Sarah's divorce papers still lay unsigned. Elias understood Sarah's intention. She was trying to soften the transition for Ben, to create a sense of normalcy and warmth before the legal end of their marriage. But to Elias, it felt like betrayal disguised as kindness. He had always known that Sarah was the one steering their marriage, making the decisions, calling the shots, but never had he felt so utterly powerless. Standing there, watching the man who was replacing him in every way, he felt something break quietly inside him. Then the spell of silence shattered. Mark's daughter, the 6-year-old, giggled and pointed at Elias's car, making a mocking comment loud enough for everyone to hear. Elias winced, but before he could react, Ben suddenly stood up, trembling with emotion. "Mark's not who you think he is, Mom," Ben said, his voice unsteady but loud. The words sliced through the cheerful pretense like a knife. The air grew thick with silence as all eyes turned toward the boy. Sarah blinked, her face slowly losing color, while Mark's expression twisted from confusion to barely contained rage. "I saw him hit you once," Ben continued, his voice now a mix of anger and fear. "And I've heard him yelling at you on the phone. He's not a good person." Elias felt something primal surge within him, an overwhelming need to shield his son. He stepped forward instinctively, ready to protect Ben from whatever fallout was coming next. But before he could speak, Sarah snapped, denying everything, her voice sharp and shaking. She accused Ben of lying, of being confused, too young to understand. But her eyes betrayed her. There was something there. Doubt, fear, guilt. The group quickly dissolved after that. Mark gathered his children and left, his jaw clenched and eyes dark. Sarah, shaken and distant, left with Ben and Elias. The drive home was silent, thick with tension. Sarah stared out the window, her lips pressed in a thin line, while Ben sat in the back seat, hugging his backpack tightly. Elias kept glancing at his son in the rearview mirror, his mind spinning. Maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something different. Maybe it was the moment everything could start to heal. In the days that followed, everything changed. Sarah became distant. She still saw Mark, but something in her had closed off. Elias, on the other hand, focused entirely on Ben. The boy had cracked open something that couldn't be ignored, and Elias made it his mission to understand exactly what his son had been carrying inside him. Through quiet talks late into the night and gentle encouragement, Ben eventually opened up. He spoke of moments he'd witnessed. Mark's harsh tone over the phone, the frightening slap he'd seen during an argument, the emotional tension he couldn't quite name at the time, but now understood was wrong. He had been terrified to speak up, afraid no one would believe him, afraid that Sarah would choose Mark over him. Elias knew then that he couldn't remain a bystander. He contacted a lawyer and started the difficult, draining process of filing for a restraining order. The legal battle was messy and emotionally exhausting, but in the end, the order was granted. Mark was legally barred from approaching Sarah, Ben, or their home and workplace. The revelation shattered Sarah. She broke down, overcome with guilt and sorrow. She blamed herself for not seeing the signs, for exposing Ben to such danger, for trusting someone who had masked his true self so well. Elias didn't offer judgment, only comfort. He sat with her in silence when she cried, listened when she spoke, and reassured her when the guilt overwhelmed her. He was there for her, not as a husband seeking to reclaim love, but as someone who had once vowed to be her partner through thick and thin. Time, though slow, did its quiet work. Slowly, painfully, Sarah and Elias began to reconnect. Not just as co-parents, but as people rediscovering each other through shared pain and healing. They talked more. About everything. About the past. About their failures. About their fears and hopes for Ben. They spent more time as a family, doing things that made Ben smile. Long walks, ice cream runs, movie nights, little things that rebuilt trust and safety. The restraining order against Mark became a key part of the divorce proceedings. It painted a clear picture of danger and instability, and as a result, Sarah was awarded full custody of Ben. Their social circle was split. Some friends were supportive, others judgmental. But Sarah and Elias didn't let it affect them. They chose to focus on the people who stood by them and shut out those who only added to the pain. In the end, the storm, ugly and painful as it had been, became the catalyst for something unexpectedly beautiful. Elias and Sarah were not the same people they had been before. They had grown, scarred but stronger. They had learned to communicate with honesty, to forgive without forgetting, and to choose each other and their son every single day. And as for Ben, he was the quiet hero of it all. A brave, bright boy who had spoken the truth when it was hardest. He had suffered, yes, but he had also been the spark that saved his family. He knew now, without a doubt, that he was loved, that he was safe, that his voice mattered. The road ahead wasn't promised to be easy, but Elias, Sarah, and Ben were no longer walking alone. They had each other, and that made all the difference. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below.